So picture this. Giorgio Armani. You know, the name, the legend, the man who basically defines Italian fashion, right?
Yeah.
Celebrated his 90th birthday recently. 9 decades of just pure style.
Incredible, isn't it?
But here's the thing, and this kind of blew my mind when I first read it. This icon, this king of, impeccably tailored suits and red carpets, he actually started out on a completely different path. In the early 60s, get this, he was studying to be a doctor, like a medical doctor.
No way. Really?
For 2 years, yeah, right here in Milan. Can you imagine Armani with a stethoscope, not a measuring tape?
It's wild, right? Makes you wonder, like, those 2 years in med school, the precision, the attention to detail.
Yeah.
Did that somehow, shake his approach to fashion? Maybe that's where that almost surgical precision in his cuts comes from. It's a really interesting way to think about his work,
Totally. It's a good reminder that, sometimes even the most set in stone paths can have these, like, unexpected beginnings. And that's what we're diving into today on Icons of Italy.
I'm excited.
We're going deep into the story of Giorgio Armani, but not just the fashion empire, the clothes, the runway shows. We're going to try to understand the man himself, the key moments that shaped him, how he became this global icon.
I mean, self-made, right? From pretty humble beginnings to the top of the fashion world.
Exactly. And we've got articles, interviews, all sorts of sources to help us paint this picture.
It's an incredible story. Like the fashion industry can be, let's be honest, pretty ruthless, but he made it to the top through pure hard work, dedication, and talent. No silver spoon here.
No, not at all. And it's hard to grasp, like, just how influential he is globally today. But one of those moments that really pushed him onto the world stage was back in 1982, Time magazine.
Oh, yeah.
Cover.
Yeah.
Giorgio's gorgeous style. That was it right there. It took him from being, a well-known European designer to a global phenomenon.
It was huge. And it was interesting to see how the fashion world reacted, too. Like, I read this anecdote about Valentino seeing the cover, and he was genuinely surprised, like, happy for Armani, Pero bravo, he said.
That's so great.
It shows you how big a deal that was. Because before Armani, only Christian Dior had been on the cover of Time like 40 years earlier. It really was a turning point.
Yeah, amazing. But let's rewind a bit, go back to the beginning. So Giorgio Armani was born in Piacenza in 1934, later moved to Milan. And one thing that struck me is that he's actually quite shy as a kid.
That's interesting. You don't really think of shy when you think of Armani, do you?
Not at all. But it's always fascinating to see how those early experiences can shape someone who goes on to, project this huge confidence and have such an impact.
Definitely. It makes you think about those formative years, like his time as a buyer for La Rinascente, that department store here in Milan. That seems to have been really important for him.
La Rinascente. I mean, that was a hotbed for creative talent, right?
Oh, yeah. As a buyer, Armani was seeing all these amazing products from all over the world, India, Japan, the US. He was bringing these international influences into Milanese fashion, which at the time was very, Eurocentric. So you can see how that early exposure might have shaped his vision.
Totally. And he also had stints as a photographer's assistant, worked in the promotion department for a fashion agency.
So he was really getting a feel for all sides of the industry.
Exactly. Learning on the job, no formal design training yet, but he was absorbing everything. And then, in 1965, he lands a job at Nino Ceruti's Hitman. And this is where it gets really interesting, because here he is, no formal design training, but he designs his first menswear line.
Wow. Talk about diving in head first.
Right. Pure talent, intuition, and that drive we were talking about.
He spent 7 years at Hitman. That was his real-world design school.
For sure. And after that, he was ready to go solo. His friend, Sergio Gagliotti, who became his business partner, encouraged him to go freelance. And in 1975, bam, Giorgio Armani SPA is born. They launched men's and women's pret-a-porter lines.
I read somewhere that they sold their beat-up Volkswagen to get the money to start the company.
Yes, some sources say that. Others say they had around $100,000. Either way, they were taking a risk, putting everything on the line for this vision.
And it paid off. Big time. They made $1 million in sales in their first year.
Incredible, right? But the real game changer, the thing that really defined his early style, came a year later in Florence.
Yeah.
The Deconstructed jacket. This was a total revolution in menswear.
Yeah, it was. He basically took the traditional men's jacket, which was so structured, so stiff, and just loosened it up. He got rid of the lining, the padding, moved the buttons around, played with the proportions. It was all about comfort, ease of movement.
And it totally changed the way men looked at suits, right?
Absolutely. You know, this was post-Vietnam War. There was a shift happening in how men wanted to present themselves. Those old, rigid suits felt, I don't know, authoritarian.
Yeah.
Armani's softer lines felt more modern, more approachable, less, like you were wearing a uniform.
Yeah, he did the same thing with women's wear, too.
Oh, yeah. He redesigned the women's suit, made it more relaxed, and he was pairing evening gowns with flats or even sneakers. It was radical at the time.
Totally groundbreaking. He understood that people, both men and women, wanted clothes that felt good, that allowed them to move freely and express themselves. And that vision took off.
Yeah.
I mean, he signed a deal with Grupo Financiario Tessil, started expanding into major European cities. Then, in 1979, he launches the Giorgio Armani Corporation in the U.S.
He was using materials in these really unexpected ways. Like, people were calling him a genius.
He was creating this unmistakable style, elegant, but still, for everyday life. And he was doing it all through regular manufacturing channels. So it was high-end, but also accessible.
Understated, but powerful. Seductive, even.
Yeah. So how did he become the king of Made in Italy? Like, how did he earn that title?
It was a combination of things. His business sense, his vision, his ability to adapt, but always staying true to his core aesthetic. He also had this gift for communicating his ideas, explaining his philosophy. He wasn't just designing clothes, he was creating a whole world.
And he famously said, "Ho sempre creduto nella coerenza più che nelle tendenze. Credo nelle evoluzioni, non nelle rotture improvvise." I have always believed in coherence more than in trends. I believe in evolutions, not in sudden breaks. Basically, he wasn't chasing fads. He had this strong sense of what he believed in, and he built on that step by step.
That makes sense. And you can see that in his influences, too. It wasn't just fashion. He was inspired by, old Hollywood movies, Coco Chanel, artists like Klimt and Matisse.
Even Eastern and Arabic cultures.
He was taking it all in and filtering it through his own lens. And if you're loving this journey into the world of Italian icons, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more.
But we have to talk about Hollywood. Because, Armani and the movies, that's a whole other chapter. And it all started kind of by chance in 1978. Diane Keaton.
Annie Hall.
Yep. She wins the Oscar, and she's wearing an Armani blazer. Talk about a fashion moment.
It was perfect for that whole effortless 70s chic vibe.
Totally. And Armani has said that he was so surprised and touched to see her wearing his design. It was before the days of, stylists and red carpet deals. It was a genuine choice,
Authentic.
Exactly. But the real Hollywood breakthrough was American Gigolo in 1980.
Richard Gere. Those suits?
It was a cultural phenomenon.
It changed how men dressed. And it made Richard Gere a star.
I love that quote from Judith Thurman. She said, "Armani disarms men and their garments without emasculating them."
He somehow managed to make men look both powerful and approachable, sexy, but not, threatening.
And that was just the beginning of his Hollywood story.
Yeah, over 250 films. Think about it. The Untouchables, The Wolf of Wall Street, red carpets galore. He once told Martin Scorsese, "La vita è un film e I miei capi di abbigliamento sono I costumi."
Which translates to,
Life is a film and my clothes are the costumes.
he totally gets the connection between fashion and storytelling.
He does. And he's also said that while the red carpet has become this huge industry, the best collaborations, the ones that really work, are based on, real relationships.
Trust and mutual respect. It's not just business, it's personal.
Exactly. But Armani also understood that he needed to reach beyond the, elite world of haute couture. He had to connect with a wider audience.
Which is where Armani jeans and Emporio Armani come in.
The 80s.
He wanted to make his style more accessible, for younger people, different budgets. He basically democratized high fashion.
It was brilliant. He called Emporio Armani the battering ram for his style, especially in markets like the East. He was inspired by, that American idea of democratic fashion, making good design available to everyone.
It's amazing to think about the scale of his empire today.
Staggering.
Over 2 billion euros in revenue in 2022. They have almost 9,000 employees, 9 production facilities, a global distribution network.
And he owns almost all of it. 99.9%. Forbes says he's the 3rd richest man in Italy, worth over 11 billion euros.
It's mind-blowing. And the way he built it, he said he did it step by step, not in a hurry, always observing real life, wanting to dress real people, give them a new sense of confidence of their own worth. That's powerful.
It really is. And his creative process is fascinating, too. He talks about starting with no. It's all about taking away, simplifying, refining.
And for him, style is about elegance, courage in your choices, innovation without going overboard. It all has to be grounded in good taste, cultural awareness.
What's really interesting is how he defines elegance and glamour. Elegance for him is like a way of being. It's discreet. It's not about showing off. And glamour isn't ostentatious. It's subtle, veiled.
It's about attitude more than anything.
He's designing for a way of being in the world, not just a body type.
And he talks about wanting to give people a sense of quiet confidence, a sense of security when they wear his clothes.
He's not just dressing people, he's empowering them.
Exactly. And you can tell that this is more than just a job for him. It's a passion.
An obsession, almost.
He said that he has this deep passion for what he does, this drive to create beautiful things that touch people's lives.
Whether it's a jacket or the design of a hotel.
And he says that working gives him energy, that it inspires him. It's like his work is his lifeblood.
Pretty amazing considering he's 90 years old.
Right. And he's thinking about the future too. How to preserve his legacy.
The Armani Silos Museum in Milan, it's amazing.
It opened in 2015. It's a showcase of his career, almost 50 years of it.
200 garments, 200 accessories.
And the name, Silos, he chose that to connect clothing with the basic necessity of food.
I love that. And the current exhibition there is all about his collaboration with the photographer Aldo Falle, 1997-2021. Aldo Falle per Giorgio Armani. Armani has said that Falle could transform his fashion ideas into real-life images, that he could capture not just the clothes, but the way of life they represented.
He said, "Lavorare con Aldo mi ha permesso, fin da subito, di trasformare in immagini reali la fantasia che avevo in mente. Che I miei abiti non erano soltanto fatti in una certa maniera, ma rappresentavano un modo di essere e di vivere."
Which means?
Working with Aldo allowed me from the very beginning to transform the fantasy I had in mind into real images, that my clothes were not only made in a certain way, but represented a way of being, of living.
Beautiful.
And then there's his recent collaboration with Treccani, the Italian encyclopedia.
Talk about bringing together beauty and knowledge.
Right, a new edition of the encyclopedia with a cover designed by Armani. It's like the ultimate symbol of Italian culture and excellence.
And we can't forget about Grige.
That color.
His signature, a mix of gray and beige. It's not just a color, it's a whole mood. Warmth, sophistication, urbanity, discretion.
It's calming and versatile.
And then there's the Emporio Armani eagle logo.
Oh yeah, the eagle.
Totally accidental. Someone just sketched it up in 1981, but it became this iconic symbol for a new generation.
It's like a code.
Yeah. So, looking ahead, Armani's thinking about the future of his company.
At 90. That's amazing.
Right. He's considering partnerships, a foundation, maybe bringing in outside management.
But he's ruled out going public, listing on the stock market?
He said that his one regret is not taking enough time for himself.
Yeah, he dedicated his life to his work. And his advice to young designers is, don't rush, develop a realistic sense of self.
Wise words.
So what do you think? Armani's journey from wanting to be a doctor to becoming this fashion icon, it's incredible.
He shaped global fashion, created this whole vision of Italian elegance, and he's done it all through hard work, vision, and staying true to himself.
Yeah.
What part of his philosophy speaks to you the most?
The comfort, the glamour, the accessibility of his designs. It's something to think about.
It is. And we hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Giorgio Armani.
There are so many more Italian icons out there waiting for us to explore their stories.
What other figures would you like us to cover? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the lives and legacies that have shaped Italy and the world.
Don't forget to share this deep dive with anyone who loves Italian style and history.
And as Armani himself keeps innovating and inspiring, even at 90, what do you think his legacy will be? How will he be remembered in the world of fashion and beyond? It's a big question, and one that we'll all be pondering for years to come.
It's fascinating to think about. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Ciao.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next videos.